So you released your song Reach, yeah, and
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's a
Thank
good
you.
song.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I've noticed that your chords are all very their voicings are different than what I would ever do. Not because they're bad, because they're amazing, but like I'm just bad at voicing sometimes. Or I'm not bad at them, but like I have mine that I like stick to. I don't know. You have interesting voicings that I don't normally hear on guitar. Like a lot of fifths in the bass and like more spread stuff.
Yeah, there's some stuff that I've lifted that I like the sound of. For me, the texture of a voicing, right? Like the timbre of a voicing has to kind of fit in where you put it. So if you want the voicing to be like lighter and airier, you're gonna like, do it nice and spread. Not spread necessarily, but you're gonna choose notes in the register that make it light and not very bassy and rumbly, right? But if you want it to be bassy and rumbly, maybe you want to go for a right. Just to say what I was doing just now, I'm thinking like F major 7. So if I had to play an F major 7, there's a lot of different ways that you can voice an F major 7.
There's like the typical guitar player.
Yeah, so there's there's this, and then all its inversions, right? Oops. Right, so there's all the inversions of the drop 2, sorry. This is the drop 2 voicing. And then you could add extensions on it, and then you can kind of rearrange the voicing. This, by the way, that I do a lot, it's just an inversion.
Yeah.
Of this same drop 2.
Yeah.
Right, and it's actually the same as doing this. But so in Reach, there's a bunch of changes, and a lot of these changes are sort of rhythm guitar, chuggy changes. So sometimes I'm thinking, like I want that extra girth on a voicing.
Yeah.
Rather than just playing, even though they serve the same functional purpose. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. There's also some stuff with 9s that I like to do where I will take a voicing and then drop the third to a 9. But that's mostly what I'm thinking, other than just trying to make stuff more interesting.
Yeah, I like the fifth in the bass thing a lot. And then like building chords around that, I guess, or like just adding extensions.
Because what are you? If you have to play an F major 7, if you have to play an F major 7, what would you play? Like, what are you thinking?
I tend to like add stuff to it because I don't know, just doing that is so overdone.
Yeah.
Anyways, so like it's a habit, but I'll usually add a 9 to it, do that kind of thing. I think if someone's like, just play with no context, play an F major 7, I'll probably do something like that, which is not exactly the chord they're asking for, but it's like, it's similar.
For sure. As a general rule for me, as long as I know what the function is, like let's say this is supposed to be a 1 chord as opposed to a 4 chord, right? I don't really care that no one's specifying the extensions. Unless someone specifically tell me like, don't play the 9 because like it clashes with something else, or like I don't want that voicing, I don't want that top note. Unless someone's being explicit about that, as long as I know what the function is, as long as there's no confusion, I will just add whatever fits.
Yeah. And you can use the extension stuff as like a way to add movement to a chord, right? So instead of, play an F major 7 for 2 beats, you can go maybe that for 1 beat and that for the next beat.
Absolutely. That's a huge move. Right? Like
exactly,
going,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're all serving the same purpose, but it just makes it sound way more interesting.
Yeah, that way you actually have a melodic line going as opposed to just a static chord.
Yeah.
Something else that I think about a lot, I'm not sure if I did that on that song as much, but something that I do a lot, especially when I'm playing with other people, and especially if there is another chord player in the band, is I will play like a lot less notes. So the first thing that kind of goes is the root.
Yeah. Anytime you're playing with a keyboard player, you really don't need the root.
Bro, anytime I'm playing with a keyboard player, it's better if I just don't play.
It feels like that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you got to go for the... That's what happens. That's what people want to hear when there's a keyboard player,
Right.
But so if there's a bassist and a drummer, like you can kind of drop the bass notes. But so that goes back to what I was saying about timbre, right? If I'm playing an F major 7 and there's a bassist and a keyboardist, if I do this, you get fired. Like no one wants to hear that. Like it's over. Like why would you do that? Like turn down. Like no one wants to hear that. If you're playing it with a keyboardist and a bassist, in a whole band and as a singer, and then you have to play an F major 7, you have to really be choosy with what you're gonna play, right? Like
that stuff I think is kind of overlooked sometimes, and it's really important that you're like, if you're playing with other people who are in the same frequencies as you should get out of the way and play something else. Like if I'm not playing with an acoustic guitar and they're doing all open chords, I'm not going anywhere near that side of the fretboard.
Absolutely. You have to stay in your lane, as some people say. Like you have to get out of my register is what I tell people sometimes. Going back to composing, when I'm comping parts right now, because what we're talking right now is as if like you're in a band situation and you're kind of like improvising your parts. If we go back to sort of writing parts and choosing voicings to fit the part, I'm thinking about timbre and I'm thinking about internal movement and line, right? As if I was writing a riff, but it's just chords.
Do you have an example of internal movement?
Well, firstly, like when you're writing a riff, you're definitely thinking of the harmony sometimes, right? Right? Like if you're thinking like... Right? Yeah. You could make that into a riff, but I'm just outlining... Right? But then how you would make that into an interesting thing is you could outline different notes within those chords, right? And then you can make that into then more of a comped chord part, right? Right? Something that is kind of cool that you could definitely get away with in more prog scenarios is playing with clusters lower down, right? Because clusters, this sort of thing, right? Like, that's
a nice
right,
chord.
or it's a second inversion C major 7.
Where are you getting the? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Right. You could also think of that as like an A.
Yeah, like a fifth in the bass.
Yeah, like an A minor 9. But so there's a cluster there, right? Or this one, cluster as well. Yep. So that stuff is all cool when it's higher up. It's kind of nice and airy, Right, that's cool. But when you start playing clusters lower down, right, it has that quality to it. Same thing with this. That 9. There's kind of a quality to it that isn't really appropriate in a lot of genres, but in prog you can kind of do it because it has that sort of clank to it, right? Right?
Right, yeah.
But so these are things that I'm thinking of when I'm trying to write a part, right? It's almost as if I'm writing a riff, but made up of chords, rather than writing an actual riff. And when you're improvising, you just kind of use your ears, is what you're playing actually good? And then you change it because it's not good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the cluster. All that kind of... Doing it in the lower register really only works in guitar-based music. Well, isn't the whole thing where like lower notes get way more dissonant?
So what you're alluding to is the frequency speed is lower, so there's kind of more like fighting so like the warble, the speed of the warble is slower when the note is lower because the frequency is lower, right? So when the warble is slower, you can hear it more. That's kind of fast, right? It's a bit slower. It's a bit slower. Right, so the more you can hear it, the less palpable it is, right? Or rather, the less sick it is. Like, it's just not something that you want to hear unless you're really like going for it. There's a lot of warble there. But in a wall of sound situation, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's choosing voicings based on context and not just pulling it out of your ass.
Yeah. That's it. You got it. Thanks for watching this episode of Trading Licks. Me and Josh are splitting these videos between both of our channels. So go check out his channel for other episodes and make sure to subscribe to mine as well as his. We got a bunch of links and stuff in the description. So maybe check that out, and we'll see you next time.